I shouldn't have sent it. But I did. And I watched my son's face as everything he believed in snapped. If you're here listening, I'm strangely grateful. I've carried this story alone for so long that speaking it out loud feels like letting air out of something that's been swollen and aching inside me for years. I've shared tiny pieces of it with friends, hinted at parts to my sister, whispered fragments into the dark when I couldn't sleep. But I've never told the whole thing. Not honestly. Not from the real beginning. So, pull up a chair. Let me take you back, before the message, before the begging, before the moment I sent something I can never unsend. It was a quiet Sunday afternoon, one of those warm, drowsy ones in late September when the sunlight slants in at just the right angle. I remember thinking it felt peaceful in a way life rarely does anymore. Michael had brought his wife, Emily, over for lunch. They'd been married almost 3 years by then. 3 years of watching my son become someone else's partner, someone else's priority, someone else's home. I tried to be supportive. I really did. I smiled when they announced their engagement. I welcomed Emily into our family as best as I could. I shared family recipes, holidays, memories, space, all the things a mother shares when she's trying to let her son grow without feeling like she's losing him. But I'd be lying if I said I didn't struggle. There was always this thin, polite distance between me and Emily. She was kind, polite, responsible. Yet something about her always felt slightly guarded, like she was holding a version of herself back from me. On that particular Sunday, though, everything felt normal. Not good, not bad, just normal. The house was warm, the windows opened just enough to let the breeze in. Football murmured from the living room TV, though none of us were really watching. The kitchen smelled like roasted chicken and rosemary. Michael was scrolling through something on his phone, chuckling at a video, and Emily was helping me clean up, moving around my kitchen with quiet familiarity. For a moment, a rare and unexpected moment, I felt something like peace. Maybe we were all settling into our roles. Maybe this was the beginning of a smoother chapter. While I rinsed a dish, Emily asked, "Do you want me to put the leftovers in containers?" "Sure," I said. "That'd be great." She smiled, small, tired, but genuine enough that I noticed. There were faint shadows under her eyes. I wondered if she and Michael had argued the night before, but I didn't ask. I'd learned that newlyweds often hid their battles behind closed doors, and mothers-in-law weren't always invited inside. We finished cleaning, wiped down the counters, and started a fresh pot of coffee. Everything felt routine. Then my phone buzzed. Just once at first. Then again. Then again. Normally I ignore my phone when I'm busy in the kitchen. Half the time it's spam, or a coworker asking about a scheduling change, or a friend sending a meme I won't understand until 3 hours later. But today the name glowing on my screen shot straight through me. Jason, Michael's oldest friend, practically a second son to me. He had moved to Seattle years ago, married, started a different kind of life. He wasn't someone who messaged me often. He usually texted Michael, not me. So seeing his name lighting up my phone, not my son's, made something in my stomach twist. 3 messages, then a voice note. I glanced over at Emily. She had her back turned, stacking containers in the fridge. She didn't notice the way my face changed. I wiped my hands, heart suddenly heavy inside my chest, and picked up the phone. The first message said, "Mrs. Bennett, please don't show this to Michael yet. I don't know who else to send it to." My throat tightened. My heartbeat quickened. This wasn't normal. This wasn't casual. This wasn't anything you sent lightly. The second message flashed in next. "Emily may have mentioned something. Or maybe she hasn't. But you need to see this first." Emily? I looked at her again. She was washing her hands, humming softly, completely unaware that her name had just appeared in a message from someone she hadn't spoken to in years. The voice note buzzed. I hesitated. Then I pressed play. Jason's voice came through low, cautious, almost shaking. "Mrs. Bennett, I'm sending you a video. Please watch it on your own first. Don't show Michael yet. I'm serious. I'm not sure Emily will tell you the truth, and he trusts you." My stomach dropped. Behind me, the faucet turned off. Emily reached for a towel. I quickly locked my phone and set it face down on the counter. "Do you want sugar in the coffee?" she asked casually. "Just 1 spoon," I managed. She poured the coffee, the warm smell wreathing around us like nothing in the world was wrong. But something was wrong. Very, very wrong. I slid my phone back toward myself. A notification popped up. Video received. A large file. Direct from Jason. "Should I take the coffee to Michael?" Emily asked. "Go ahead," I said, voice steady even though my pulse wasn't. She picked up the mugs and walked out of the kitchen, disappearing into the living room where my son was lounging on the couch. Her footsteps softened as she walked away. Then I heard Michael's voice, warm, relaxed, laughing about something. "Thanks, Em. You're the best." I stayed where I was, hands pressed against the cool countertop, phone burning like a secret in my pocket. I could have ignored it. I could have waited until later. But I opened the message thread again. Jason's words were still there. Each one felt heavier the second time I read them. A mother knows when something is wrong with her children. A mother feels it before she understands it. And in that moment, standing alone in the kitchen, I felt something inside me tighten, some instinct waking up. I opened my gallery. There it was, the thumbnail of the video. A tiny frozen frame. Just pixels. But it felt like a loaded gun sitting in my hands. I didn't press play. Not yet. Instead, I just stayed at it, thinking. What could Emily possibly be hiding? What does Jason know? What am I about to walk into? From the living room, I heard the clink of mugs. A light laugh. The TV shifting to some commercial. Everything sounded normal. Painfully, cruelly normal. And yet the air felt different. Charged. Waiting. I turned the phone screen off and slid it deep into my pocket. When I stepped out of the kitchen, Emily glanced at me, quickly, almost nervously. Her eyes flicked toward my pocket for just a fraction of a second. She knew, or she suspected, or she feared. That look, that tiny flash, that was the first crack in the facade. The warning sign I should have paid attention to. But I sat down on the armchair beside Michael instead. I smiled faintly. I pretended I wasn't holding something dangerous, something that could tear my son's world apart. Michael looked over and said, "Mom, you okay?" "Yeah," I whispered. "Just tired." A lie. One of many still to come. We watched TV, or pretended to, but I wasn't seeing anything on the screen. My mind kept circling the video sitting in my pocket like a ticking bomb. Every few minutes, I caught Emily watching me. Not in a hostile way. Not even in a guilty way. Just waiting. Waiting for what, though? For me to open it? Or for me to ignore it? I didn't know then. I didn't know anything yet. All I knew was that something was unfolding silently in that living room. Something brittle, something huge, something inevitable. And soon, too soon, Emily would stand in front of me and beg, "Please don't show him." But that moment wasn't here yet. Not on that soft, warm Sunday when everything looked peaceful from the outside. Inside me, though, the storm had already started. And I had no idea how much damage it would do. Before I tell you what was in that video, and what I did with it, I need you to understand how we got here. Because none of this happened in a vacuum. It didn't just explode out of nowhere. It was built, slowly, over years of small decisions, quiet compromises, and things I saw and chose not to see. Michael is my only child. It was just the two of us for a very long time. His father, David, died when Michael was 12. One car accident, one bad intersection, one phone call that split our lives into before and after. People always say it happens so fast, but grief moves slowly. It crawls. It sits in corners and lingers in everyday things. Mugs, shirts, the indent on a side of a bed. For years after that, the house felt too large for just the two of us. But we tried. We built our own routines. We had pancake Saturdays, where I pretended I knew what I was doing with batter and he pretended not to notice the lumps. We had movie nights with terrible action films. We had quiet evenings where he did homework at the dining table while I paid bills I didn't fully know how to handle. I watched him grow from a boy who clung to my hand at every school event, into a teenager who rolled his eyes and shut his bedroom door, and then into a young man who started driving, working, making his own choices. He was never a perfect kid. He forgot things. He got into a fight once in high school. He lied about a party. But underneath all of that, he was kind. Soft-hearted, like his father. He apologized when he was wrong. He hugged me longer than most boys his age hug their mothers, especially on the days that were hard for me. So yes, you could say I was protective. Maybe a little too protective sometimes. A little too invested in the direction his life was going. When he first mentioned Emily, we were sitting at that same dining table, sharing Chinese takeout. "There's this girl at work," he said between bites. My heart did that tiny stupid flutter mothers get when their kids say something that sounds new. "Oh," I asked, pretending to be busy with my noodles. "Tell me about her." He shrugged, trying to play it down. "She's in marketing. Smart, funny, annoying sometimes. She corrects my emails. But she's nice. I don't know." I watched the way his face shifted when he said her name. I knew it was serious long before he admitted it was. The first time I met her was at a coffee shop. He insisted on neutral ground so I wouldn't scare her with my questions, which offended me a little and amused me a little more. Emily was put together. That's the first phrase that comes to mind. She had this neat ponytail, light makeup, simple jewelry. Her handshake was firm, but her smile was nervous, and that combination made me like her more than I expected. She asked me about my job, about my hobbies, about Michael as a kid. What was he like, she said, eyes bright, before he became this serious spreadsheet robot. We all laughed, and I told her about his superhero phase, the time he broke his wrist trying to fly off the couch. Her laugh was warm, and Michael relaxed in a way I hadn't seen in a long time. On the drive home, he asked, "So what do you think?" "She seems nice," I said. "Smarter than you." He laughed. "Yeah, she is." I could see it in his eyes. He was already halfway gone, leaning toward this new life, this new person who would eventually become his family. They moved quickly after that. Dating turned into living together. Living together turned into an engagement ring he showed me in the kitchen one night, his hands actually trembling a little. "Too soon?" he asked. "Be honest." I looked at the little diamond ring, simple but beautiful, and then at my son, who suddenly looked like that 12-year-old boy again, asking if I'd still be proud of him. "You love her?" I asked. He nodded, immediately, no hesitation. "Then it's not too soon," I said. The wedding was small, intimate. Emily's parents, a few friends, some cousins. Jason flew in from Seattle to be best man. I remember watching him adjust Michael's tie, saying, "Dude, she's way out of your league," and everyone laughing. Emily looked beautiful, not like a magazine bride. Real, human, a little anxious, but glowing in her own way. When Michael saw her walking down the aisle, his eyes filled up with tears. I felt my own throat tighten watching him. They said their vows. They promised things they truly believed they could keep. And I sat there thinking, okay, I can do this. I can share him. The early days of their marriage were fine, messy in ordinary ways. They argued about money, about dishes, about his late nights at work and her long calls with friends. But they also sent me photos from weekend trips, silly little videos of inside jokes, selfies at restaurants. I tried to give them space. I really did. I didn't want to be the kind of mother-in-law that horror stories are written about. Still, there were tiny moments here and there where I felt like an outsider in my own child's life. Like the first time I went to visit their apartment and saw the family photos on their wall, Emily's parents, Emily and Michael, even a goofy shot of Jason and Michael at some baseball game, and then one small frame of me and Michael tucked a bit to the side. Not wrong, not cruel, just a rearrangement of priority I had to swallow. We settled into a rhythm. They came over at least twice a month for dinner. We'd talk about work, housing prices, whether they wanted kids someday. Emily and I shared recipes, swapped skincare tips, sent each other sales links sometimes. On the surface, everything was stable. Not perfect, but stable. And then there were the other things. The small things. The times Emily would go quiet when certain names came up. The way she flinched once when Michael joked, "Remember when you and Jason used to hate each other at work?" I noticed that. The quick flash of something in her eyes. Something too sharp for just annoyance. There was also the way her phone was always turned face down on the table. Not just with us, she did it everywhere. At first, I rolled my eyes internally and thought, everyone's like that now. Privacy, notifications, whatever. But sometimes I caught her glancing at it with this tightness around her mouth. We had one fight early on, Emily and I. Not a screaming fight. A quiet, careful one. It was about Michael's promotion. He and Emily had come over to celebrate. We had dinner, toasted with cheap champagne, laughed. Later that evening, after Michael went to the bathroom, Emily turned to me and said, "I know you're proud of him, but I hope you also see how much I support him behind the scenes." I blinked, surprised. "Of course, I know you do." She shrugged, but her smile was brittle. "It's just, sometimes it feels like he's still your son first and my husband second. We're building a life together, you know. It's not just your job to protect him anymore." Her words stung more than I wanted to admit. I took a breath and answered as calmly as I could. "I've been protecting him since the day he was born. That doesn't just turn off. But I do see what you do for him. I appreciate it, Emily." She softened a little. "I know. I'm trying too." We moved on. Michael came back into the room. The moment slid under the rug with all the others. Still, it stayed with me. Months turned into years. Their marriage had highs and lows. They thought about buying a house, then delayed it. They talked about kids, then put the conversation on hold while they figured themselves out. I watched them drifting in small ways. Not divorcing, not imploding, just drifting. Michael spent more late nights at work. Emily picked up a part-time remote gig and seemed increasingly glued to her laptop. They smiled in photos, but I could see the tiredness behind their eyes. I knew that tiredness. I had worn it myself in the years before my own marriage broke under the weight of grief and responsibilities. One evening, months before that Sunday with the video, I went to drop off a casserole I'd made. I hadn't called first. I know people say you shouldn't do that with grown kids, but I figured I'd just leave it if they weren't home. Emily opened the door. She looked startled. Really startled. "Mrs. Bennet. Hey, I wasn't expecting you." I know, I laughed. "I just made too much food. Thought I'd save you the trouble of cooking tomorrow." She forced a smile. "Oh, that's sweet. Thank you." Michael wasn't home yet. She said he was working late. I stepped in only far enough to set the dish down on the kitchen counter. Her laptop was open on the table. The screen was visible for a second before she reflexively closed it. I hadn't been trying to look. But some things catch your eye even when you're not looking for them. On the screen, before it snapped shut, I saw a chat window. A name at the top. Jason. I didn't say anything. Why would I? Jason was an old friend. They'd all worked together once. There was nothing inherently wrong with Emily talking to him. Still, the way she shut the laptop, the quickness, the almost guilty motion, it caught my attention. "Everything okay?" I asked lightly. "Yeah," she said too quickly. "Just work stuff." We talked for a few minutes about nothing. Traffic, weather, groceries. I left soon after. On the drive home, I told myself not to read into it. They were adults. They had their own history, their own social circles. But the image of that chat window, combined with the way Emily's shoulders had tightened when she saw me see it, lodged itself in the back of my mind like a splinter. I didn't tell Michael. I didn't want to be that mother who stirred up drama over nothing. Instead, I filed it away under probably nothing and continued with my life. That wasn't the only small thing, though. There were odd, disconnected moments. Like the time Michael mentioned casually that Emily used to have a crush on Jason before we started dating. He said it with a laugh, so I laughed too. But Emily's smile froze for a second, then stretched just a little too wide. Or the night I overheard a piece of a phone call when I was in the hallway and Emily thought I was asleep in the guest room. Her voice was low, urgent. "I can't keep covering for you like this," she said. "He deserves to know at some point." Then a pause. A lot of listening. "And what? I'm just supposed to live with it." I never heard the other voice. I didn't know who she was talking to. When she hung up, I slipped quietly back into the room, heart pounding like I had done something wrong just by existing in the same house. The next morning, I made coffee like nothing had happened. She looked tired but otherwise normal. We didn't mention it. You might think I was blind, or you might think I was willfully ignoring signs. The truth is somewhere in the middle. I saw things. I just didn't attach all the meaning to them that they deserved. I told myself every couple had secrets, private arguments, old connections that didn't mean anything anymore. I wanted my son to be happy. I wanted to believe he was. Which brings us back to that Sunday. The normal Sunday where the house smelled like coffee and roasted chicken, where football hummed softly from the living room, where my son stretched out on the couch, and my daughter-in-law moved around my kitchen like she belonged there. On the surface, it was just another family lunch. On the surface, we were fine. But if you'd looked closely, you would have seen the small things, the faint dark circles under Emily's eyes, the way Michael barely glanced up from his phone when she spoke, the way she kept checking the time, and the way her gaze kept flicking to my pocket whenever my phone buzzed. That day, when I pulled my phone out and saw Jason's name, when I read his message, when I heard that voice note where he said, "I'm not sure Emily will tell you the whole truth," all of those earlier moments suddenly came back. The closed laptop, the late night call, the old crush, the guarded expressions, they all quietly rearranged themselves into something that felt a lot less innocent. It was still just a feeling. I didn't have proof yet. Not really. But as I sat there in my own living room, pretending to watch TV, pretending to sip cooling coffee, pretending not to notice Emily watching me watching her, I realized something, and it chilled me more than I wanted to admit. Our normal had been cracked for a long time. We just hadn't heard the sound of it breaking yet. And the sound, when it finally came, would start with that video I still hadn't pressed play on. I didn't watch the video that Sunday afternoon. Not while Michael and Emily were still in the house. Not with her eyes flicking toward me every few minutes. Not with my son lying there, oblivious, relaxed, safe, at least for that moment. But the weight of it wouldn't leave me alone. We finished our coffee. Michael dozed off with one arm over his eyes. Emily scrolled on her phone with that tight-jawed concentration she used when she didn't want anyone to guess what she was really thinking. From the outside, we looked like a normal family enjoying a slow weekend. Inside, I was holding my breath. Eventually they left, Michael hugging me quickly, Emily giving a polite smile and saying, "Thank you for having us." I walked them to the porch, waved as they backed out of the driveway, and waited until their car disappeared around the corner. The moment the taillights vanished, my knees felt weak. The house was quiet in that heavy, almost uncomfortable way silence feels after company leaves. Too still, too empty, too aware. I locked the door behind me, leaned against it for a moment, and pressed my palm to my chest. "Okay," I murmured. "Okay, just breathe." My phone buzzed again. A new message from Jason. "Mrs. Bennett, please, just watch it when you're alone. And call me. It's important." My stomach tightened. Something in his tone, something in the fact that this grown man, 1,000 miles away, was texting me instead of texting my son. That was the moment I knew I couldn't delay anymore. I walked into the kitchen, sat at the table, and set my phone down in front of me like it was evidence from a crime scene. I folded my hands, unfolded them, folded them again. My breath kept catching and skipping, and I hated that I already felt like I knew this was going to hurt. For a long time, maybe a full minute, I just stared at the thumbnail of the video. A dark room, a figure sitting on a couch, a faint light. It wasn't clear, which made it worse. Finally, I tapped it. The video opened. It was a screen recording, shaky at first. Jason's voice whispered over the sound of someone moving in the background. "Just Watch from the beginning, he muttered. I can't believe she did this. The view shifted. My heart pounded. There, on the screen, was a chat thread. Names, messages, timestamps. Emily and Jason. Their conversation. Messages sent late at night. Dozens of them. Scrolling up, scrolling up, scrolling up. My breath froze completely. They weren't talking like old coworkers. They weren't talking like casual friends. They were talking like people with something shared. Something hidden. The first messages were harmless enough. White jokes, memories, bits of sarcasm. But a few screens up, things changed. Emily wrote, I don't know how long I can live like this. Jason wrote, you don't have to. You know there's another option. Another option? For what? My fingers trembled as I leaned closer. Emily, Michael doesn't see anything. He trusts me too much. It makes it worse. Jason, he trusts you because he loves you. But that's not your fault. I paused the video. I sat back. My throat felt dry. What were they talking about? A problem in the marriage? An emotional affair? I didn't want to jump to conclusions, not yet. But the discomfort, the dread, was settling deeper. I pressed play again. More scrolling. More messages. Jason's voice whispering faintly over it. I told her we shouldn't have kept this going. Kept what going? Then the screen recording reached a part where Emily mentioned something that made my skin go cold. We shouldn't have let it go this far. He never deserved this. Jason replied, we agreed it was for the best. For everyone. Everyone? Who was everyone? I could feel my chest tightening, a pressure pushing up into my throat. The video continued. Jason scrolled further up, past emojis, past apologies, past late-night messages with timestamps like 1:42 a.m., 3:05 a.m. Far past anything that could be explained away by harmless old friends catching up. Then he reached the part he wanted me to see. The moment appeared without warning. A message from Emily. He thinks the problem is work stress. I can't tell him it's because of us. Jason, I know, but we can't keep pretending nothing happened. Us. Something happened. They couldn't keep pretending. I paused the video again, hand shaking hard now. My first instinct was defensive, maternal. My son doesn't deserve this. My second instinct was denial. Maybe I'm misunderstanding. Maybe there's context. Maybe this isn't what it looks like. But I pressed play again. And there was no misunderstanding. Not when Jason scrolled further up to the night Michael got sick from food poisoning. Emily had told us it was something he ate at work. But her messages said something entirely different. Emily, I shouldn't have lied about the medication. He only got sick because I mixed the doses. Jason, you had no choice. If he found out the truth. The truth. The medication. A mix-up that wasn't a mix-up. I gasped out loud, covering my mouth. Oh my God. She had lied. She had hidden something medical. Something serious. And Jason knew. I rewound the clip and watched that part again. The words didn't change. They were still real. My hand shook so violently I almost dropped the phone. The video kept going. Jason scrolled through more messages. Ones where Emily talked about secrets she was carrying. Ones where she admitted she had ruined things long before the wedding. Ones where she said she owed Michael the truth, but didn't know how to give it. The video ended suddenly, Jason whispering. You needed to see it. Just call me when you can. I sat perfectly still. My entire body felt numb. A bird chirped outside the window, loud in the silence. A car passed down the street. Some neighbor's dog barked. Normal sounds. Normal world. But my world wasn't normal anymore. My son's wife had lied about medication. She had hidden something connected to his health. She had been talking late at night, about secrets, about guilt, about something going too far with another man. And that man had sent me proof before sending it to my son. I pressed my fingertips to my temples. Why me? I whispered. Why not him? Why would Jason send this to me first? Because Jason was scared. Because Jason didn't trust Emily anymore. Because maybe, just maybe, whatever this secret was, it was bigger than an affair. Bigger than marriage troubles. Bigger than something Emily could explain away. I replayed the voice note. Jason's voice kept cracking in the background. Please don't show Michael yet. I'm not sure Emily will tell you the whole truth. I felt anger rising through the numbness. Hot, sharp anger that surprised even me. This was my son. My only child. If she had hurt him, physically, emotionally, intentionally. I stood abruptly, chair scraping against the tile. My whole body was shaking now. I needed answers. Real ones, not second-hand ones. I grabbed my keys. I grabbed my phone. I walked to my car with the same tunnel vision a person has when they are about to do something that can't be undone. I drove to their apartment. The entire drive, my heartbeat was so loud it felt like another sound in the car. Every red light felt like torture. Every passing mile felt like I was being dragged deeper into something I wasn't prepared to face. By the time I pulled into their parking lot, my hands were damp with sweat on the steering wheel. Their living room lights were on. I could see shadows moving inside. Michael, Emily. I parked. I turned off the engine. I sat there for a long moment, staring at the window. Should I confront Emily first? Should I talk to Michael? Should I call Jason? Should I pretend I hadn't seen anything until I understood more? I didn't know. All I knew was this. My son was living next to a secret so heavy it made two adults whisper across the country. And I had the proof in my phone. I opened my door slowly. My foot touched the pavement. But right then, right as I stepped out, my phone buzzed. A new message. From Emily. My entire body froze. The message preview said, "Please don't come inside yet." I stayed at the screen, the parking lot suddenly colder, darker, quieter. She knew. Somehow, she already knew. My pulse thudded in my throat as another message appeared. "We need to talk first. Before you tell Michael anything." I stepped backward so fast I bumped into the car behind me. My breath caught. My fingers trembled so violently I almost dropped the phone. She knew. She knew I knew something. And she wanted to get to me before Michael did. That was the moment I realized. This wasn't just about marriage trouble. This was something dangerous. Something carefully hidden for years. Something she was terrified would come out before she could explain it her way. And something inside me whispered, "This is only the beginning." Emily's messages froze me where I stood. The parking lot suddenly felt too bright under the street lamp, too open, like the whole world had turned to watch what I would do next. I stared at my phone, at those words. "Please don't come inside yet. We need to talk first." My first instinct was fear, not of Emily herself, but of the truth she was trying to get ahead of. The urgency in her text wasn't the tone of someone who had made a small mistake or lied about something harmless. It was the tone of someone who knew the dam had finally cracked. I took a shaky breath and typed back, "What's going on, Emily?" The three dots appeared. Stopped. Appeared again. Stopped again. Finally, a reply. "I'll explain everything. Just give me 5 minutes." 5 minutes. Like she was telling me to wait before entering her courtroom. Like she needed time to gather a story, to fix her face, to choose her version of the truth. I leaned back against my car, my mind racing. What did she think I knew? How much did she think Jason had shown me? How long had she been keeping this secret? And why was she more afraid of me knowing than of my son knowing? While I stood there, torn between storming inside and waiting like she asked, another message came. "Please, don't tell Michael yet." This one hit differently. It wasn't sharp or commanding. It was desperate. Something inside me shifted. I had come here full of anger. Now, a new feeling crept in. Fear. Not fear for Emily. Fear for Michael. What had she done? What had she been hiding all this time? What exactly had Jason meant when he said he never deserved this? My fingertips tingled with the need to confront her. My throat felt tight. I typed, "Why not?" No typing bubble appeared. Nothing. Just silence. And then, behind the silence, movement. Emily stepped out of their apartment. She spotted me and froze halfway down the walkway. The porch light cast a pale glow over her face, and for the first time since I had known her, she didn't try to fake a smile. She looked undone. Not messy, Emily was too controlled for that, but stripped of whatever calm mask she usually wore. Her shoulders were hunched. Her hands were trembling at her sides. Her eyes, God, her eyes looked haunted. "Mrs. Bennet," she whispered, walking toward me slowly, like I was a skittish animal she was afraid to startle. I didn't step toward her. I didn't move at all. When she reached me, she stopped a few feet away, kept a careful distance, like she wasn't sure she was still allowed to come close. "I know," she whispered, voice barely audible over the hum of the parking lot lights. "Jason sent you something, didn't he?" My jaw tightened. "You tell me what he sent." She closed her eyes. Pain flickered across her face. "Please," she said, "before I say anything, can we go somewhere else? Outside? The park? Anywhere but here." "Why?" I asked, narrowing my eyes. She swallowed hard. "Because Michael is inside," she said. "And if he hears even a piece of this before I've had a chance to explain, he'll never forgive either of us." Either of us. The words landed heavily. I glanced toward their apartment window. Michael's silhouette moved across the living room. He was there. He was close. And I was standing between him and a truth that might shatter him. I looked back at Emily. "You lied to him," I said quietly. "You lied about more than one thing." She flinched hard, like I'd struck her. "Yes," she whispered. "I did. And I swear I regret it every day." Every day. That meant it wasn't recent. It wasn't a small slip. It wasn't just about the medication mix-up from years ago, the one Jason hinted at. This was bigger. "What did you do?" My voice cracked. Emily glanced around as if making sure no neighbors were watching. "Please," she repeated, "can we talk somewhere else?" "No," I said, firmer than I expected. "You tell me right here." She stared at me, her breath trembling, and finally whispered, "Jason wasn't supposed to show you anything. God, he wasn't supposed to tell anyone. We were going to fix it before Michael ever found out." Fix it. That word, that cold, mechanical word sent a jolt through me. "Fix what?" My voice rose. "Fix what, Emily?" Her face crumpled. "Everything," she whispered. "We were going to fix everything." I felt heat rising up my neck. "You talk like it's a broken sink," I snapped. "Tell me what you did." She pressed her hands to her face for a long, agonizing moment. When she dropped them, tears streaked her cheeks. "Michael was never supposed to know," she whispered. "He wasn't supposed to get hurt. And, Mrs. Bennet, I swear, I didn't do it alone." My breath stopped. "Did what?" I whispered. "Say it." She didn't answer. Instead, she looked past me, toward my car, toward escape. I took a step forward. "Emily." She finally broke. Her voice was a thin thread. "Michael doesn't know I was seeing Jason before the wedding." My stomach lurched. She looked at me like she wanted me to slap her. "We ended it," she said quickly. "We ended everything before the engagement. Michael never knew. It wasn't physical after that. We promised. We cut contact." "But you didn't," I said softly. She shook her head. "No," she admitted. "I thought we could stay friends, that it wouldn't matter. But feelings don't disappear just because you put a date on a calendar." I wanted to shout. I wanted to scream at her for dragging my son into this mess. But something in her voice, its trembling honesty, held me still. "And the medication?" I asked, breath unsteady. "What about that?" She closed her eyes. "That was my mistake," she whispered. "My horrible, unforgivable mistake." The tears started flowing faster. I wasn't thinking. I was panicking. I was afraid he'd figure something out. I mixed up the bottles while I was trying to hide Jason's messages. I didn't mean to. I swear I didn't mean to. I never wanted to hurt him. My pulse thudded in my ears. "He got sick because of you." She nodded, sobbing. "I know. And I lied to cover it up. I told him it was food poisoning because I couldn't let him look too closely at anything back then." Her voice cracked. I was scared of losing everything. Losing the life we built. Losing him. "But you were texting Jason." "Yes," she whispered. "Not romantically. Not anymore. It was more like we were trying to unbury something from the past. That didn't make me feel any better. But why? I asked. Would Jason send me the messages? Why now? She swallowed hard and looked away. Because he's angry, she said quietly. Because he thinks I chose the wrong life. Because he thinks Michael deserves to know before. She stopped, cut herself off mid-sentence. Before what? I demanded. Emily stepped back like I'd pushed her. I can't say that yet, she whispered. Not until you hear the whole story. The whole story. Those words again. I felt like every sentence she spoke added another weight to my chest. Emily, I said, my voice shaking, are you having an affair? The air went still. She met my eyes. No, she said. Not now. Not for years. But the past didn't stay in the past. And Jason thinks telling you everything is the only way to force me into honesty. False. A fresh wave of panic swept through me. Emily, what exactly are you afraid Michael will find out? She wrapped her arms around herself, shaking. That something happened the night before our engagement, she whispered. Something stupid. Something careless. Something that made both of us agree to hide parts of that night. What happened? I asked. Her lips trembled. I can't say it here, she whispered. Please, not like this. I grabbed her arm, not hard, but enough to stop her from backing away. You need to tell me, I said. Right now. Because whatever you did, whatever you and Jason hid, it's already hurting my son. She burst into tears. I know, she cried. I know. I've been trying to end this for months, but Jason keeps bringing it up. He keeps telling me it's wrong. He says the secret is eating him alive and that I should tell Michael. But you didn't, I said. She shook her head hard. No, because if Michael finds out what I did, he'll leave me. And maybe he should. But I can't lose him. I can't. Her desperation poured out of her like water through shattered glass. I ruined everything, she sobbed. And I've been living terrified that one day you or Michael would look at me and see it. My voice softened, without my permission. See what? She covered her face again, shaking. That I'm not the person he thinks I am, she whispered. Silence stretched between us, the kind of silence that doesn't need sound to make itself heard. Finally, she dropped her hands and looked at me with swollen, red-rimmed eyes. I'm begging you, she said. Please don't show him the messages. Not yet. Let me explain first. Let me tell you everything. You deserve the truth before Michael does. Before Michael does. Her words settled on me like a stone. You only want me to hear it first, I said quietly, so you can control when and how he hears it. She didn't deny it. Of course she didn't. She just whispered, please, I'll tell you everything. Tomorrow. Just give me one day. One day. One more day to shape her story. One more day to rewrite the past. One more day to stretch out the lie. And I, standing in that parking lot, holding the secret like a live wire, I felt something inside me drop. For the first time since watching the video, I realized I didn't fully trust either of them. Not Jason, not Emily, but I didn't trust myself either. Because I didn't know, not yet, whether hearing the truth would break me more as a mother or as a woman who had been forced to see every crack in her son's marriage up close. Emily wiped her eyes. Please, she whispered. Let me do this right. Just one more day. I stared at her for a long, painful moment. And then I said the only thing I could say. Tomorrow. Her shoulders sagged with relief. A guilty, exhausted relief. And as she walked back toward the apartment, slowly, quietly, I felt my heart sink deeper into my chest. Because I knew tomorrow would be worse. Much worse. And I was right. Everything she told me the next day destroyed me. But nothing destroyed me more than realizing she still wasn't telling the whole truth. I didn't sleep that night. Not even for a minute. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, the shadows stretching long across the room, the silence so thick it felt like something alive pressing against my chest. Every time I closed my eyes, the video replayed in loops behind my eyelids, Jason's voice, the scrolling messages, Emily's trembling confession. It all swirled together until my mind felt raw. Around 3:40 a.m., when the house was still and empty, I realized something. I had spent the entire night drowning in shock and hurt, but the hurt wasn't the full truth of what I was feeling. Underneath the pain, deeper than the betrayal, was something steadier, something colder. Resolve. For the first time since this nightmare began, my thoughts sharpened. The fear and confusion fell away piece by piece, leaving behind the unmistakable weight of a mother who had been pushed too far. Emily wanted one more day to tell me everything. But she hadn't given me even half of it, and I knew it. Every time she started a sentence with "before Michael finds out," "oh, please don't tell him yet," "oh, I'll explain the rest soon," I heard the truth in the pauses. She wasn't protecting Michael. She was protecting herself. And maybe, just maybe, Jason too. I sat up slowly, my joints aching from tension. In the window, the faint light of morning was beginning to creep over the horizon. A new day, the day she promised to confess everything. But I already knew what Emily was planning. Not to tell me everything. Not really. She would give me the edited truth. The softened truth. The version that made her look frightened instead of reckless, trapped instead of guilty. I couldn't go into this blind. So I got out of bed, wrapped myself in a sweater, and went to the kitchen to make coffee. The routine, filter, water, switch, drip, gave me a few moments to think without drowning. What do I actually know? What has Emily admitted? And what is she still hiding? The list formed slowly, painfully. She and Jason had been more than co-workers before the engagement. Their relationship didn't vanish cleanly afterward. She had mixed Michael's medication, accidentally or otherwise. She had lied about the cause of his sickness. She and Jason had been talking late at night for years. She feared Michael discovering something from the night before the engagement. Jason said he never deserved this. My chest tightened. Whatever they hid, it wasn't small. Not a misunderstanding. Not a simple lie. It was something with teeth. The coffee machine clicked softly. I poured a cup, sat at the kitchen table, and wrapped both hands around the mug. And I decided, quietly, clearly, that I wasn't going to wait for Emily to choose the version of the truth she wanted me to hear. If she was going to talk, she was going to talk on my terms, not hers. By mid-morning, the world had woken up. Cars passing outside, birds arguing in the trees, neighbors leaving for work. Ordinary sounds, but they felt distant to me, like I was behind a pane of glass. At 10:13 a.m., Emily texted, "Can you come over around noon? I'll tell you everything." I stayed at the message. My first instinct was to go immediately. My second was to never step foot in her apartment again. Instead, I typed back, "No, meet me at the park. Noon. Neutral ground. Somewhere public. Somewhere she couldn't manipulate the space, pace the room, shut doors, or stage the scene." She replied instantly, "Okay. Just okay. No heart emoji. No forced politeness. No extra words." She was scared. Good. I didn't want to punish her, but I needed her afraid enough to be honest. While the hours crawled toward noon, I made a list, something I rarely did except around holidays, a list of questions I needed answered. I wrote slowly at first, then faster. 1. What exactly happened before the engagement? 2. Why were you and Jason texting for years after? 3. Why did Jason say he never deserved this? 4. What were you hiding the night Michael got sick? 5. Why did you lie about the medication mix-up? 6. What option were you discussing with Jason? 7. What are you afraid Michael will find out? The questions looked like evidence in a trial. And maybe, in a way, that's what this was becoming. A trial. But the judge wasn't me. It was the truth. At 11:50, I grabbed my keys and left the house. The weather was calm. Early autumn. The kind of day where the air feels gentle, almost soft. A day that shouldn't hold anything terrible. I parked near the park entrance and walked to our usual bench, one of those wooden slat benches facing a duck pond. Families walked by. A couple jogged. Life continued around me. At 12:04, Emily arrived. I knew she would be late. She always needed a few extra minutes to compose herself. She wore a simple sweater and jeans, hair pulled back, no makeup. Her face looked pale, drained. She approached the bench slowly, like she wasn't sure if she deserved to sit beside me. "Mrs. Bennet," she whispered. I nodded toward the open space. "Sit." When she sat down, I didn't turn to look at her. Not yet. I wanted her to feel the distance. "You asked for a day," I said softly. "You have 5 minutes. Start talking." She blinked, startled. 5 minutes." "Yes," I said. "The truth first. The details later." She exhaled shakily. Then she began. What she said first wasn't what I expected. Michael was never supposed to propose when he did. I turned sharply. "What does that mean?" She twisted her hands together. "He proposed the day after everything happened with Jason. And when he did, it felt like a lifeline. Like a chance to be someone better than what I'd been." My jaw tightened. "And what exactly had you been?" She inhaled deeply, trembling. "A coward," she whispered. "And selfish." Then she said something that made my stomach drop. "The night before Michael proposed, I was with Jason." A coldness washed through me. "Emily." My voice sounded distant, even to myself. "It wasn't supposed to happen," she rushed. "We'd broken things off months before. I thought we were done. But that night, we argued. We were both drunk. We made stupid choices. And when I woke up the next morning..." She covered her mouth with her hand. "I realized I couldn't live the life Jason wanted. I couldn't build a future on something so unstable. And Michael, he was steady. He was safe. He loved me without question." "So you chose Michael," I said, my voice emptied of emotion. She nodded miserably. "And you never told him?" Tears slid down her face. "I couldn't," she whispered. "I wanted to be his. Completely. But the truth would have destroyed everything before it even began." I closed my eyes for a long moment. This wasn't just betrayal. This was the foundation of their marriage, rotten before the vows were ever spoken. "And the medication?" I asked quietly. She swallowed. "That was months later," she said. "Jason texted me something stupid, something from that night, and I panicked. I grabbed Michael's medication bottle, thinking I could hide it before he walked in. I dropped both bottles. They mixed. I didn't realize until it was too late." "And he got sick," I said. She nodded shakily. "Yes, and I lied because if he asked how it happened, everything would unravel." I let that sink in. This wasn't an accident. Not really. This was a chain of lies stretching backward for years. Why was Jason sending all of this to me? I asked. Emily hesitated. "Because he wants the truth out. He can't live with it anymore. And because he knows how much Michael loves you. He thinks if you hear the truth first, you'll convince me to tell Michael gently." A colder calm spread through my chest. "I'm done giving you chances to control the story," I said. She froze. "Mrs. Bennet." "No," I said firmly. "You don't get to ask anything from me anymore." Her face flinched like she'd been slapped. "You want the truth out?" I said. "Fine. It's coming out." Her breath hitched. "Please, not yet." "Emily," I said quietly. "I watched the video. I know enough to understand that the truth belongs to Michael now. Not to you, not to Jason, and not to me." Her eyes brimmed with panic. "But he'll leave me," she whispered. "He'll hate me. Everything will fall apart." "That's the consequence of what you did," I said. "You don't get to run from it anymore." For the first time since all of this began, I felt in control. Not vindictive, not vengeful, just clear. The truth was no longer terrifying to me. It was necessary. Emily's voice cracked into a sob. "Please, Mrs. Bennet, please don't destroy my marriage." I stood slowly. "You destroyed it," I said softly. "You just didn't tell anyone." She covered her mouth, shoulders shaking. I stepped back. "The conversation is over," I said. "I'll speak to Michael tonight." Emily lunged forward as if trying to grab my arm. "No, please, just let me tell him." No, I said simply. She collapsed back onto the bench, sobbing quietly, the sound blending with the rustle of the trees overhead. I walked away before she could say anything else. For the first time since this nightmare began, I didn't feel powerless. I felt steady, certain, cold in the way mothers become when protecting their children requires it. Because now I had a plan. And Michael deserved the truth, full, unedited, and on my terms. Tonight, whatever happened next, it wouldn't be painless, but it would be honest. And honesty, at this point, was the only thing left that could save any of us. I drove to Michael and Emily's apartment that evening with my hands clenched so tightly around the steering wheel that my fingers tingled. The sky was already darkening, a heavy, bruised blue, like the world itself knew what was coming. I kept telling myself, stay calm, stay steady, don't fall apart before he hears the truth. But my heart wasn't steady. My breath wasn't calm. Every mile felt like a countdown. When I pulled into their parking lot, I saw Michael's car, Emily's car, the light on in the living room window. He was home. She was home. Good. The truth belonged to all of us now. I locked my car and walked toward the apartment. Each step felt sharper than the one before it. I wasn't afraid, not anymore, but I was bracing myself for impact. Because the moment this door opened, nothing was going to be the same again. I knocked. 3 slow knocks. Through the door, I heard footsteps. Then the lock clicked. Michael opened the door and smiled, warmly, instinctively, the way he always had for me. Mom, hey, what are you doing here? That smile broke me a little. I stepped inside, brushing past him before he could hug me. He paused, confused. Mom, everything okay? No, I said simply. His brow furrowed. Is it your health? Did something happen at work? What's wrong? Behind him, Emily stood frozen in the kitchen doorway. Her eyes widened in terror. She knew. She knew tonight was the night. Michael, I said softly, sit down. He blinked. Why? Emily stepped forward. Michael. Let him sit, I said sharply. She recoiled, fists clenching at her sides. Michael looked between us, his confusion shifting into concern. Mom, what's going on? I nodded toward the couch. Please, sit. After a moment of hesitation, he did. Emily hovered behind the armchair like someone about to face a firing squad. I stayed standing. I couldn't sit. My body wouldn't let me. Michael, I began. I need you to listen without interrupting. Please. He nodded slowly. Okay. I took a breath. A deep one. This is about Emily, I said, and something she should have told you years ago. His expression shifted instantly, worry tightening into something sharper. He asked, turning toward her. What's she talking about? Emily's throat bobbed. Michael, I was going to tell you. No, I cut in. You weren't. You've had years to tell him. Michael stared at both of us now, eyes flicking back and forth, pulse visible in his neck. Tell me what, he demanded. Silence. Deep. Painful. Thick. I reached into my purse and took out my phone. And I said the sentence that cracked the world open. Jason sent me a video. Michael's entire body stiffened. Jason, he repeated slowly. Why the hell would Jason send you a video? Emily's knees visibly buckled. Michael, please, she whispered. Let me explain. No, Michael lifted a hand toward her without looking at her. His eyes were locked on me. Mom, what did Jason send you? I swallowed hard. Messages, I said, between him and Emily. Michael went utterly still. What kind of messages? The room vibrated with tension. Emily stepped closer, voice shaking. Michael, they're old, so old, and taken out of context. Sit down, he barked, sharper than I'd ever heard him. She froze. He stared at me again, voice low, dangerous. What messages, Mom? I opened the video. My hand trembled just slightly, but I didn't let it show in my voice. Messages from before you got engaged, I said. Messages from after you got married. Messages where Emily talked about lying to you, hiding things. Messages where she admitted she and Jason. Emily screamed, "Don't." Michael exploded. "Stop yelling," he roared. She shut her mouth instantly. He turned back to me. "Play it." "Michael," Emily tried again, desperate, begging. "Emily," he said, voice cold as stone, "sit down." She sank onto the edge of the chair, shaking violently. The room was silent except for her breath hitching. I pressed play. Jason's screen recording filled the room, his cursor scrolling through years of messages, the murmured audio, Emily's own words. Michael leaned forward, elbows on his knees, head in his hands as the truth poured out in black and white text. He didn't move. He didn't speak. He didn't even breathe loudly. I watched him break without making a sound. When the message appeared, Emily saying, "I don't know how long I can live like this," Michael flinched. When Jason wrote, "He trusts you because he loves you," Michael shook his head, tears forming. When the message came about the medication, the one where Emily admitted she mixed the bottles, Michael's whole body recoiled like he'd been hit. "God," he whispered, voice shredded. "God." "Emily." She covered her mouth, sobbing without sound. Then came the message about the night before the engagement, the one she had confessed to me in the park. Emily whispering, "We shouldn't have let it go this far." Jason responding, "We can't keep pretending nothing happened." Michael stood up suddenly, too fast. The coffee table rattled. He didn't look at either of us. He walked to the window, rested his hand against the glass. His shoulders shook. "Michael," Emily whispered, "I'm so sorry." He spun around. "Sorry," he said, voice cracking. "Sorry for what, Emily? For lying? Cheating? Poisoning me? Take your pick." Her sob broke free. "I didn't cheat after the engagement," she cried. "I swear. It was just that one night before." "Oh my God," he choked. "Stop talking." He covered his face with both hands. I had never seen him like this, not even when his father died. Emily reached toward him. "Michael, please, let me explain everything. You need context. You need to understand." "I don't need anything from you," he shouted. It echoed off the walls. "Were you ever going to tell me?" he demanded. "Yes," she sobbed. "I planned to. I just didn't know when." "When?" he roared. "After how many years? After we had kids? After Jason sent the video to my mother? When, Emily?" She shook uncontrollably. He looked at me suddenly, wild, desperate. "Mom, how long have you known?" "Since yesterday," I whispered. I confronted her. She asked for time. I didn't give her much. He nodded slowly, breathing hard. Then he turned back to Emily. "What about the medication?" he asked. "What did you do to me?" Emily collapsed to her knees. "It was an accident," she sobbed. "I swear, I wasn't trying to hurt you. I was hiding my phone and the bottles fell and I grabbed the wrong one and you lied," he said. "Instead of telling me the truth like a normal human being, you let me believe I'd poisoned myself." He backed away from her like she was radioactive. "I trusted you," he whispered. "I loved you. I believed everything you ever told me." She reached for him again. "Michael, don't touch me." Her hand fell. Then Michael said a sentence I'll never forget. "If my mom hadn't gotten that video, would you ever have told me? Even 10 years from now?" Emily didn't answer. She couldn't. And that silence, that awful, guilty silence, was answer enough. Michael took a step back. Then another. Then he looked at me, eyes full of devastation I could not fix. "I need you to leave," he whispered to Emily. Her breath hitched. "No. Michael, please, we can work through this. Get out. Michael, get out." Emily collapsed into sobs again. "This is my home, Michael," she whispered. "I don't have anywhere else to go tonight." He didn't soften. He didn't blink. He just said, quietly, "Then sleep in the guest room. And don't talk to me. Don't come near me. Don't even look at me." Emily staggered to her feet, sobbing so hard she couldn't breathe. She disappeared down the hallway, the sound of the guest room door slamming shaking the apartment. And then it was just me and my son, in the broken hush of a home that would never feel the same. He stood still for a long moment. Then he leaned against the wall and slid down to the floor. His head dropped into his hands. "Mom," he whispered, voice cracking open. She was my whole life. My heart broke, shattered cleanly in two. I sat beside him on the floor, not touching him yet, just sitting with him in the ruins. He didn't speak, didn't cry loudly, just breathed in short, jagged gasps. Finally, after minutes that felt like hours, he whispered, "How do I come back from this?" I didn't lie. I didn't say anything empty. I just said the only truth I had. "You come back slowly," I whispered, "and you come back honest, and you don't come back alone." He leaned into me then, his body heavy, exhausted, broken. And I wrapped my arms around my son, the boy I raised, the man who trusted too deeply, and held him while his world fell apart. This was the moment everything changed. The moment the truth wasn't a secret anymore. The moment I realized the hardest part hadn't even started yet. The aftermath would be worse. Michael didn't sleep that night. I didn't either. We sat in silence on the living room floor for what felt like hours, him leaning against the wall, me beside him, neither of us speaking. The apartment was too quiet, the kind of quiet that isn't peaceful but hollow. Around 2 a.m., Michael finally stood up. He didn't look at the hallway where Emily was sleeping. He just walked into the kitchen, opened the fridge, and stared at it like he'd forgotten what he was doing. I followed him slowly. "You should lie down," I whispered. He shook his head. "I can't." I closed my eyes and all I see is that video. His voice was rough, raw, like he'd been shouting for hours even though he'd barely spoken. I reached for a glass, filled it with water, and handed it to him. He took it, held it, but didn't drink. "I don't understand," he whispered. "Everything feels unreal. Like I'm going to wake up and this will all be something else." I didn't tell him it was real. He already knew. The refrigerator hummed softly. Outside, a car drove by, the sound distant and muted through the window. Ordinary noises in a house that no longer felt like home. He finally drank the water, set the glass down, and leaned on the counter. "Mom," he whispered, "how long have you known?" "Since yesterday," I said. "That's all." He nodded, and I could see he believed me. But belief didn't erase pain. He rubbed his hands over his face. "I can't breathe in here." I turned to the window. The guest room door was still closed. No sound came from inside. "Let's go for a walk," I suggested softly. He nodded, grabbed his jacket, and followed me out. The air outside was cool, almost cold. The kind of night breeze that wakes up your senses and makes you feel the shape of your own breathing. We didn't speak at first. We just walked. Past the apartment building, past the parking lot, down the quiet sidewalk lined with dim streetlights. After a few minutes, Michael let out a shaky laugh. Short, bitter. "I married someone I didn't know," he said. I shook my head. "You knew the person she wanted to be." He kicked a pebble on the ground. "But that doesn't matter, does it? The person she was, that's the truth." A long silence. He stopped walking suddenly, turned to face me. "Mom, was I stupid? Was I blind?" "No," I said gently. "You trusted the woman you loved. That's not stupidity." "Feels like it," he murmured, his shoulders hunched in defeat. I touched his arm. He didn't move away. "You loved her," I said softly. "You built a life with the information you had. You're not at fault for her secrets." He swallowed hard, eyes shining again. "I don't know how to face her tomorrow." "You don't have to," I said quietly. "Not yet." We kept walking. By the time we got back to the apartment, it was nearly 3:30 a.m. No lights were on except the small lamp in the living room. Everything felt fragile, like a house of cards that could collapse with one wrong breath. Michael paused at the doorway to the hallway. "I can't sleep near her," he whispered. "You don't have to," I said. "Come home with me." He hesitated. "I don't want to leave her alone. Not because of her, but because I don't trust myself not to yell again. It wasn't fear. It was restraint. My son had always been gentle. Then I'll stay here, I said. He looked at me, exhausted. You don't have to do that. Yes, I said simply. I do. He nodded once, then curled up on the couch, pulling a blanket over himself. It was too small for him, but he didn't care. He was asleep, or something like sleep, within minutes. I sat in the armchair beside him, watching his chest rise and fall, making sure he didn't choke on another nightmare. I was still awake at sunrise. The morning was quiet. Emily stayed in the guest room. I heard her crying softly around 7 a.m., but she didn't come out. Michael didn't stir. Around 9, I made coffee. Michael woke at the smell, habit, even through heartbreak. He sat up slowly, rubbing his eyes. Mom, thank you for staying. I'm not going anywhere, I said. He stared at the mug I placed in front of him. I have to talk to her, he whispered. I nodded. I know. He waited almost an hour before he finally walked toward the guest room. His steps were slow, hesitant. He stopped at the door. His hand hovered over the knob. I stayed in the living room, letting him take this moment alone. He knocked. There was a pause. Then Emily's voice, small, frightened. Michael. Can we talk? A sniff. Then the quiet sound of the door unlocking. I couldn't hear everything. I didn't try to. This was their conversation, not mine. But I heard enough. Her sobs. His quiet, pained questions. Long stretches of silence. Then Emily saying, I never wanted to hurt you, followed by Michael whispering, but you did. The conversation lasted almost 40 minutes. When he came out, his face was pale, drained, but steadier. He walked toward me and sat down. She wants to stay with her sister for a while, he said. She already packed. And you? I asked. He shook his head slowly. I told her I need space. I didn't say the words divorce, but they were there. Between us. Silence. He looked down at his hands. Mom, I'm angry, and sad, and ashamed, and relieved at the same time. Does that make sense? Yes, I said gently. It does. He leaned back into the couch. Do you think she ever loved me? I thought carefully before answering. Yes, I said. I think she did. But love isn't always clean, or honest, or enough. He swallowed hard. I don't know what to do next. You don't have to decide today, I said. You just have to breathe. Eat something. Rest. The decisions will come later. He nodded, lost in thought. At noon, Emily left. She didn't look at me as she walked out the door. She looked at Michael once, one long, broken look, then whispered, I'm sorry, and stepped outside. Michael didn't get up. He didn't run after her. He didn't slam the door. He just sat there. When the door clicked shut, he exhaled so deeply it sounded like something inside him finally collapsed. I sat beside him, my hand lightly brushing his back. He didn't cry. He didn't speak. He just breathed. Slow, shaky, like each breath hurt, but was still happening. That was enough. Over the next few days, things shifted gently, painfully, but steadily. Michael slept at my house. He worked from home. He walked around like a ghost the first day, but on the second day, he managed to eat half a sandwich. On the third day, he showered and shaved. Small steps. He didn't block Emily, didn't lash out, didn't make any final decisions. I need to heal before I decide the rest, he said, and I was proud of him for that. Strong decisions can't come from broken places. As for me, I felt a strange mix of sorrow and steadiness. I wasn't happy Emily was gone. I wasn't happy Michael was hurting. I wasn't celebrating any of this. But I felt clarity. For the first time in a long time, the lies were gone. The shadows were gone. The pretending was gone. There was just truth now. Painful, sharp, harsh truth. But truth. And truth is the only ground you can rebuild anything on. That week, we didn't talk about the future. We talked about the next hour, the next meal, the next step. Healing isn't dramatic. It's slow, quiet, Ordinary. Sometimes painful. Sometimes peaceful. Never quick. And that was where we were. Moving through each moment. Together. But even as I watched Michael slowly reclaim pieces of himself, one thought lingered in the back of my mind. This wasn't over. Not yet. Not fully. Emily wasn't gone for good. Jason wasn't done speaking. The truth wasn't finished unfolding. Something still waited on the horizon, and I wasn't sure if it would break us again, or finally set us free. The days that followed were quieter than any I'd lived in years. Not empty, just quiet in a way that lets you hear things you've been ignoring for too long. Michael stayed with me for nearly a week. Not because he needed someone to cook for him or clean for him. He was capable of all that. He stayed because he needed presence. A steady place to land while his sense of self stopped spinning. Sometimes he talked. Sometimes he didn't. I followed his lead. Healing isn't about forcing conversation. It's about offering space where someone can choose to speak when they are ready. One evening, 5 days after the truth came out, we sat on my back porch watching the sun set behind the trees. The sky was soft, washed in warm colors like the world was gently apologizing for all the harshness it had delivered recently. Michael sipped his tea slowly. Then he said, "Mom, I don't hate her." I nodded. I understood. Hurt doesn't always erase love, I said. He exhaled shakily. I think that's what confuses me. I know she lied. I know she hid things. I know the foundation of our marriage is going to take a lot of rebuilding. But I don't hate her. You're not supposed to, I said. Hate doesn't heal anything. Understanding does, even if that understanding leads you away from her, not toward her. He looked down at his hands. I just wish she'd trusted me, he whispered. If she'd told me the truth from the beginning. I don't know. Maybe we still wouldn't have made it. But at least I wouldn't feel like I'm living someone else's life. I reached over and squeezed his arm. Secrets don't destroy people all at once, I told him. They weigh you down slowly. They rot the floorboards under your feet until one day you fall through and finally see how much was damaged while you weren't looking. He nodded. That's what I feel like, he said. Like I just fell through. A soft breeze rustled the leaves. He closed his eyes and breathed in. I don't know what comes next, he said, voice low. I don't know if I can forgive her. I don't know if I even want to. But I want to understand myself again before I make any decisions. That's wise, I said. He gave a tired, gentle smile. You know, I used to think forgiveness was something you gave someone else, he said. But now I realize it's something you give yourself. When you're ready. I felt a swell of pride in my chest, not because he was handling the pain well, but because he was facing it honestly. That is harder than anything. Emily called him 3 days later. He didn't answer, not because he wanted to punish her, but because he wasn't ready to hear her voice without reopening wounds that hadn't closed yet. She texted him once more the next day. I meant what I said. I never wanted to hurt you. I'm getting therapy. I want to understand myself better before we talk again. He didn't reply to that either, but he read it, and I could see something soften in him. Not forgiveness, not hope, just a loosening of tension he carried in his shoulders. Healing often begins in places too small to notice. A week later, he went home. Not to Emily, not to reconciliation, just home to his own space, to reclaim his independence from the wreckage. I need to sit in my own silence for a while, he told me. Figure out who I am outside of this pain. I hugged him, longer than usual. You're still you, I whispered. This didn't take that away. He nodded, though he didn't fully believe it yet. Healing takes time. He promised to call me the next day. He did. He promised to come for dinner twice a week. He did. Small promises. Kept promises. That's how you rebuild a life. A month passed. Then 2. By the 3rd month, he looked different. Not fully healed. No one heals perfectly from betrayal. But stronger. Quieter inside. He told me he'd been journaling, going for long walks, meeting with a therapist, rebuilding friendships he'd let drift during the marriage. I'm learning to breathe again, he told me. One evening in early spring, Michael showed up at my doorstep with a thoughtful expression. I reached out to Emily, he said. I let him speak. We're going to talk next week. Not to get back together. Not yet. Anyway, we're just going to talk. Honestly this time. How do you feel about that? I asked. Nervous, he admitted. But ready. I smiled. That's all you need to be. He exhaled, shoulders lowering a fraction. Mom, he said quietly. Yes. Thank you. For telling me the truth. For not protecting me from it. I swallowed hard. Truth hurts, I said softly. But lies hurt longer. He took a deep breath. I think I finally understand that. And standing there, on my front porch in the cool evening air, I felt something settle peacefully inside me. Not satisfaction. Not victory. Not vindication. Just peace. Because the truth hadn't broken him. It had shown him where his strength lived. And now he was learning to use it. Life didn't go back to what it was before. It couldn't. Too much had changed. Too much had been exposed. But what grew in its place, slowly, honestly, was something better. A son who knew his worth. A mother who learned when to step back and when to step in. And a path forward that wasn't built on illusion. Everyone survived. Not untouched. Not unscarred. But alive. Awake. More aware than before. And sometimes that's the best ending anyone can hope for. Did you like my story? Please like and subscribe and tell me in the comments where you're listening from. I want to know how far this story of mine travels. Secrets don't stay buried. They grow roots beneath the surface, and the only way to stop them is to face them in the light.